So, if you've ever, in your InfoSec or IT career, stared at a piece of technology, a network, a website, something, and the computer is not doing what you want it to do, and you've considered the finer things in life like ditch digging, Uber driving, maybe going to work in like a conflict zone in a third world country or something, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. My duckies, hello. Do me a favor, your old beloved Uncle Cochise, hit the like button. Because you see, every time you hit that like button, every time you subscribe to us on YouTube, every time you follow our social media, which, I'm going to be honest, we don't have as many followers as Kanye West. I'm not going to say that's y'all's fault. I'm just saying, maybe you just don't love us the way that Kanye West's fans love him. I get it. I'm handsome, I'm successful, I have an 8-inch seatbelt in my car, and people just hate on me for that. Yeah, Dr. Sonny's joining us. But you know what? I understand that, and I understand if you're mad at me for that, but don't take it out on Trey and Tremere. Like the temple, subscribe to the temple, follow the temple, be the temple. And with that being said, tonight's stream brought to you by not only Industrious Kraken, our favorite hentai service, but the Burp Tool Buddy. And we're gonna get to both of those things. Because here at the temple, our temple members, they build stuff. You see, they come up with, they see problems, and modern problems call for modern solutions. So they build these things. And these things are meant to solve the modern problems that we gripe about in General Channel. Every time that Symantec, rest in peace Symantec, got pwned out, every time somebody makes the joke about SolarWinds 1, 2, 3, just remember, a temple member could have prevented that. So support the companies that support the temple, because those companies are the temple. They are the guild. But we're going to get to that. Starting with Industrious Kraken. So our own beloved little Rab, big Rab, sandals and socks wearing Rab, he decided to come up with the idea of compliance isn't working. And everybody can agree on that, except for Joy. Joy will fight that one to the end, that compliance isn't real cybersecurity. But you know what? This is my show. So I'm screwing you guys. So depending on it, compliance isn't real cybersecurity, but we have to keep track of it anyways, because otherwise, the SEC or PCI or HIPAA, any of these wonderful HHS, they will come after you and they will gobble your tuchus. And we don't want that to happen, so you need to keep track of your compliance benchmarks. And then you see that's what the Kraken's meant to, the Kraken, Industrious Kraken, that's what Rab's going to call it now. Industrious Kraken is meant to do that. It's meant to help you keep track of your training. It's meant to help you keep track of your compliance controls, the security controls that you've implemented around your building. And in fact, Rab, as a part of Industrious Kraken, is going to be doing a lunch and learn, displaying the product to you guys for freezies, so you guys can see, does it work, does it not work, does it suck, and then make him recommendations, because at the end of the day, guild members like us want to make a product that does good security. We want to wear mink coats and stuff from having millions and millions of dollars, but we want good security first. So that lunch and learn is going to be coming to you guys in a couple weeks. Talk to Rab if you're curious about the Kraken, if you want to see a demo of the Kraken, if you think that maybe that might benefit your company, talk to Rab, tell him that Uncle Kochi sent you. After that, we also have Turtle's workshop coming up soon. Uncle Turtle, he's going to be teaching you how to bug bounty. That's coming up on April 17th. We are starting a new thing at the temple. We're going to try and bring you a workshop at least once a month. So we're going to have guild night every week on Thursday, as reliable as the day is long. In fact, I would argue that you can rely on Guild Night being every Thursday more than you can rely on Publix being open until 10 p.m. You can take that to the bank, folks. So we have Guild Night coming, and then we also have these workshops. Now what we're trying to roll out as a temple is let's say a guild member has a really good idea or something they want to teach not only to the guild, but to the community, and they want to charge ticket prices for it. The temple will put that on for you, and you can essentially make money off of it. That's something that we're working on right now. We have a whole bunch of awesome workshops rolling out. We have Turtle coming up actually now it's April 1st. What happened to 2020? So in 16 days, we have Turtle's workshop on bug bountying, and then towards the end of April, we have Sunny giving her world-famous Noob's Intro to Web Apps, where she's going to teach you how to tackle websites. Real quick, going back to Turtle's workshop, bear in mind, he's going to teach you how to bug bounty. He is not going to teach you how to, be Hackerman, be Mr. Robot, and execute leet scripts that, takes down Google and DOSes Amazon so you can eat Jeff Bezos' sandwich or something. So bring your own skill set, and he's going to show you how to apply that skill set so you can get paid for it. Good? Awesome. Sunny's doing on April 27th, I think, and then again on May 4th, she's doing a 2-parter workshop. We have a whole bunch of other workshops under the sun. We have an OSINT workshop that we're hopefully going to be doing. OSINT's a bad word. You'll hear my talk on why coming up towards the end of April. A whole bunch of new stuff is coming. Next week, we have our own beloved little Johnny Singer, doing his crypto mining talk. He's going to teach you how to actually build a rig so you can mine Dogecoin and buy mink coats and a Tesla and make Elon Musk really happy and eat cornflakes. So he'll teach you how to do that, learn how to build a mining rig, learn how to get all that set up. And real quick sidebar, how great is the temple? You see, I'm a narcissist. I love pumping myself up, and I love pumping the things that I'm involved up in, because for some reason that's just how I was created, as a narcissist. Just wanted to point out that the talks that you may or may not have heard at a cybersecurity event last weekend may or may not have, a lot of those talks may or may not have been given at a former and current cybersecurity club that you are a part of over the past year to year and a half. So just, yay us staying ahead of the curve. Again, that just kind of vindicates what the temple is out to do, which is change the game and do things better than everybody else is doing it, which we are succeeding. Next week also, on Tuesday, we are bringing you more content, because more content is more betterer. So Tuesday afternoon, we're going to do a lunch and learn, and it is going to be Dr. Sunny, our own beloved Dr. Sunny. She is going to talk about her burp tool buddy. So for those of you who don't know Dr. Sunny, she is a former master in residence of ours, and she just kind of went down into the rabbit hole for the last year, and we knew she had something really cool in the works. And then when she came back up, she was like, hey, I have an iPhone and Android app. You all suck at Burp Suite. I suck at Burp Suite. It's no secret to it. Everybody except Dr. Sunny sucks at Burp Suite, 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 does not suck at Burp Suite. Got it? Good. So Tuesday, join Dr. Sunny. She's going to talk about web apps pen testing. She's going to talk about her new app. She's going to introduce it to you guys and essentially explain to you why you need to get better at web apps. Because remember, you suck at web apps. She doesn't. Got it? Good. We talked about Sunny's workshop. Awesome. Now on to the main event of the night. There's a little, this fellow's a little close to my heart. So I, as an ethnic Slav, feel close to other ethnic Slavic things. For instance, my Adidas tracksuit that for the first time in 6 months I'm not wearing because I live in Florida and I don't want to die of heat exhaustion today. Love Adidas, love vodka, love speaking my mother tongue. And you see, whenever I saw this fellow's last name, Benovich, I was like, oh, okay, mój brat. Mój drug, mój brat, mój knieszta. He's a friend of mine. He could speak the fellow language. This fellow, he speaks Russian like Bill Cosby speaks English. So we had that in common, but he's here. He works at Raymond James, works all over the place. The last time we really heard from this guy in a public sense, put on this killer Wi-Fi hacking workshop. Yeah, it was packed to the gills. This was before COVID was invented. So we had... Oh, okay. Yeah, so this was before COVID, and it was just absolutely packed to the gills. He's high in demand. This guy's doing podcasts every day. He's busting tuchus. I think he actually just did the OSCP last year, or the year before. I don't know, but yeah, this guy's an awesome guy. Absolutely the finest. No better. Straight from Russia. Better than Melania. Better than Ivanka. Absolutely amazing. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce you to Vodkanaut Jake Punovich. Go.
All right, welcome everyone to Did I Do That When Pen Testing Goes Wrong with myself, Vodkanaut. Just a little about me. I've been in InfoSec for almost 20 years. The later half doing pen testing, and right now I work in the financial sector. But my organization's pretty cool. They let me do some side stuff, so I get to keep my skills sharp. Actually do testing, stay up to date, and then bring it back into the company with some really cool projects we do internally. So I have quite a few certs. I don't have my OSCP yet. I did take it when I was first starting out in pen testing. I failed it, and then I got too busy being a pen tester to go back to take the test to prove I could do pen testing. So I do have a lot of certs. I collect them, usually a couple every year, because, well, they make me feel special, and that's the best way to stave off imposter syndrome, because it's everywhere. And with that, I consider myself a lifelong learner. There's always more out there to learn, but I don't know everything, right? And anybody who tells you they do is either lying to you or they're trying to sell you a product. Now, my handle's pretty easy. You can find me in the Slack. I'm on most social media, same thing. Vodka, not just think the word astronaut, cut out the astro, fill it with vodka. And, try not to take yourself too seriously. As you can see, I work professionally every day. You got to let off that steam. Life is absurd, as I'm sure we'll probably see in some of these stories from my past tonight. Now, why this talk specifically? Really, I'm a big fan of talks. I love the talks that you guys give, the talks at the Guild. I love DEF CON, B-Sides, Hack the Box, or I'm sorry, not Hack the Box, but any of the hacker conferences, sometimes like ShmooCon. I watch these all on YouTube, and they're always like the same kind of story. Look at how great I am. Look at this thing I found. And some will kind of allude to the fact that there was some failure, but not really go over it. And I've only found a few talks that really talk about, failure. And I wanted to talk about it because really we need to rethink how we view failure. In my experience, failure has been my greatest teacher. I've done hundreds of tests, and the ones that just go normal, the ones where you go in, everything goes as planned, and you write the report, you give it to the customer, you don't remember those. Those aren't the ones that make you stretch or grow. And in our culture, our society, we're always taught you have to be number one. You have to be, if you're not first, you're last. So I really wanted to kind of get that out of the zeitgeist in here, especially with pen testing. You have to kind of think of failure in the opposite way. I want to fail because that means my customer is doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to go in and have an easy test. My goal isn't to get domain admin every time and look at how great I am on this report. I got domain admin in 6 minutes and took over your whole company. My goal as a pen tester is I want to make your company stronger. If I'm not doing that, if I'm not bringing value, then what's the point? And this mindset really is hard to get used to when you first start out. My goal is to fail. Ultimately, if I'm a great pen tester, there's no need for me. It takes a toll. I see a lot of depression, imposter syndrome, Especially like, this can be very discouraging to someone who just passed a practical exam like the OSCP or EJPT, where you did an exam that required you to actually know the tools, be hands-on, and then you go into a real network with somebody who knows what they're doing on the defensive side, and they're shutting you down left and right, and you start second guessing yourself. I know when it happened to me, I was thinking, man, I should go back and start making cakes. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And when you have this pressure, sometimes you'll try to take shortcuts or you'll do something dangerous to win. And that's something I want to really, help you understand. You don't have to do that. We want to avoid that. Now, I understand this because when I first started out, I was working at a smaller firm that they were a managed services provider, but they also did penetration testing and different consulting things. But we really didn't have like a training budget at all. I had to beg, borrow, or steal to try to get a hold of information. And it wasn't the company just didn't have the money. We also didn't have the time. All our senior staff was on bigger projects. Thankfully, we had a great test lab in the back where, since we're a managed service provider, we had a lot of different pieces of hardware, and the senior technicians had set that up. And we got to really experience a lot of technology that I wouldn't be exposed to otherwise very quickly. It just kind of gave me that sensation, like I have to learn how to swim in shark infested waters wearing a meat suit. It's something that's very uncomfortable. But eventually I got through. I started to figure out what it takes to survive. The downside here is that there were some casualties along the way, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about some of the different tests throughout my career with different vendors, and even on my own, and working with different projects where things just blew up or went crazy. So the goals of this talk, like I said, this is just kind of a giant learn from my failed post. I did this stuff, so you shouldn't have to. I mean, you might end up doing the same stuff, but at least you know what's out there. And I wanted to prepare you that, on a test, things are going to go wrong. You cannot prepare for everything. When you get on enough networks, you start to realize that, yeah, there's standards and there's best practices and there's ways that you're supposed to do things, but there's always some stupid legacy software or hardware hiding on the system, and it's going to screw up your day. I mean, it's the closest thing to a real life Minesweeper game that you'll ever play. And when these unexpected things happen, you need to be able to report on them. You need to be able to provide value to your customer. How do I take this issue and make it a win? What did we learn from this? Don't just, oh yeah, that sucked, and then walk away from it. It's very easy to get overwhelmed and get frustrated and get combative with your customer, and it's just not a good experience. That's a mistake. Now, a little bit about what this talk is not. This talk is not an overview of pen testing methodology. I'm not going to go into tool specifics or recommend anything or show you how to code or do an exploit. There's hundreds of talks out there like that. You can find them everywhere. Stay with the guild long enough, you're probably going to see 100 of those, hopefully. This is more about my journey of discovery. So, sit back, relax, grab a drink, and enjoy the ride I took. Now, a little disclaimer on this. These are things that really did happen to me. Obviously, I'm not going to name names or do anything like that. It doesn't matter to the story. I've abstracted the names and some key details. And some of them may be humorous, but there are important key takeaways for each of these stories that I try to convey, and hopefully those come across. And before RJ gets smart and asks questions about the photos, I'm just going to put it out there that none of these images are from any of the actual tests. Because I'm a professional and operational security is a thing. They're just generic things I pulled down off of the Googles or things I made. All right, so now this first story is basically one of the tests that really taught me to trust but verify. So this is pretty early in my career. We had a customer. They were multi-state, big financial institution. Gave us their test scope. We started scanning through it, the normal, you want to find out what's out there. But when we were scanning, we noticed that, hey, there's this range that doesn't match up to these other sections. Like everything had a specific brand of equipment and all the IPs were almost maxed out, but this one little segment just had a couple IPs in use and just none of the equipment matched. So it kind of drew our attention. Sometimes when you see something like that, the absence of a thing tells you something's there. It's why I like tell my clients, don't try to hide your wireless. You know, if there's a bunch of wireless around and I see a hidden SSID, I'm thinking, oh, what's there? So same thing here. We started scanning the range. We found this edge device. It was this old firewall. It hadn't been updated in years. It had, you know, a firmware ID from like the header that we just typed into Google and looked on an exploit database, and wow, there's like a whole bunch of proof of concept codes for like this version and 4 versions after. Like, oh, this is cool. We may have found a way in. So we called the customer, told them what we found. They didn't know what it was and they were curious. And they gave us the go ahead to kind of see what we could do. So this exploit code was pretty awesome. Like a lot of times I'm not a coder, and starting off, especially this early in the career, you know, I'm just trying to figure things out. I'm more brute forcing other people's work until it works. You know, that command line syntax, oh, missed a caret. You do it like 100 times. The up and down keys are your friend. But this particular code sample was beautifully commented. I haven't seen one like it since. Like every module, this is what it does. Change this if you want to attack this brand of firewall. We downloaded the code. We put it in our test lab because we happen to have the same piece of hardware, and loaded a different version of the firmware as close as we could get because this firewall we found out there was so old. And we fired off the exploit. We found it was working, didn't crash anything. So we're like, okay, cool. Call the customer, let them know we're going through, and let it fire. And this was like awesome. Just one click, bam, right through a firewall. And if you talk to anyone in pen testing, like this isn't how you do it. You don't run up to a firewall and just punch right through. You have to take some other way through. Either have someone click on like a phishing email, or do like a thumb drive, or find a vulnerable service that you break into and then open up a door so you can come in from the outside. You never just go through a firewall. So it's like, I'm young, I'm kind of stupid. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm on an adrenaline high, that feeling you get when you compromise like a box. You can't really describe it to other people until they've done it. So I get on the network, right? And I'm right off that high. I start looking around, nothing really standing out, just normal network. We're taking down all the data. There's switches, phones, computers. I noticed this DVR system that's on there, part of their closed circuit cameras. And it's a brand that I'm very familiar with because I've done installations. I'm very familiar with the software. So I want this box. Hey, I got the firewall. I want you. You are my target. So this box, get at my sites, and I wasted hours and hours on this thing. I'm running vulnerability scans. I found multiple vulnerabilities in the system. Can't get anything to work. I'm running proof of concept exploits. I found Metasploit modules that didn't work. Password for the device, right? Just out of the box, install default password. I felt so unbelievably stupid. This is now like any test. I don't care, if it's the test tomorrow. I'm going to try the default password just for shits and giggles. You never know what's going to work just from this test. So great. Wasted those hours, got on the box. Now I got access to camera feeds. Let's take a look around, see if we can find any other information. All right. So I get on the network. I'm looking around. Things look pretty normal. See an office. It's late at night. Everything's kind of shut down. There's a few lights on. But then I start noticing some weird stuff. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. This office building had some really long hallways. And we start looking at the parking lot, and we're like, huh. Oh, wait, something stands out to me in the cameras. And I realize most banks, in my experience, they don't come with a swimming pool, right? So at this moment in my life, I have this feeling, and until you screw up this bad, you cannot articulate how this feels. It's a moment when your heart is both wanting to rip out of your chest and dive into your guts so you can just black hole into yourself and shrivel up. So what do you do when this happens? Well, the first thing you do is you stop. You stop everything you're doing, any scans running. You have been contracted to test a bank. You are not in a bank. Something is wrong here. You get on the phone, you contact management, and in this case, I had them call it, legal, because I'm on a network I don't have permission to be on. This is potentially a really, really bad day. I mean, we've already seen pen testers getting locked up for jobs they're supposed to be at. I broke into a hotel when I'm trying to test a bank. That's a bad day. And then you have them contact the customer, or in this case, the customer and the affected party. You don't call them yourself. You let management handle that. And you sit back and you wait for the yelling, because the yelling is going to come. And in this case, rightly so. I mean, who else is there to blame? I'm the guy who pulled the trigger, who broke through the wall. So luckily, this ended up working out pretty well. After a lot of time working with the customers and working with the ISP and this new unintended target, we found a block of static IPs by mistake because they were having internet trouble. They called up, let's just say Spectrum, because Spectrum hates me. And yeah, they're like, oh, we transposed the customer ID. So the bank's happy because, oh, this explains some other networking issues they had, and they got a nice little credit. They were paying for a big block of IPs, and some of them got given away. That's probably in a contract somewhere that that's not supposed to happen. The hotel, they're happy. Hey, we just got a free pen test. We didn't have to pay for it, and we found out our firewalls are out of date. Thanks, awesome. And I'm happy because, hey, I still got a job. I'm not in court, and I'm not in prison, because I'm just too pretty for prison, So, this was like one of those things that stays with me even now to this day. Before I do anything, I'm calling the customer. I'm like, hey, you guys are sure? Like, this is the right address, right? And that way I have a way to document and cover myself a little better. I also, recommend, if you're doing this on your own, look into insurance or have a friend who has some legal background in case something like this happens to you, God forbid. Okay, so this next story, this is kind of a shout out to a partner of mine who recently passed. One of the better guys celebrate it, didn't do anything, because that never happens, right? That never happens. Now, this company, they weren't really big. They were a small kind of mid-sized business, and they serviced local communities. They hosted websites. They built little apps for stores in kind of an underprivileged, or not underprivileged, but underserviced area. They really had kind of a niche market just because they're the only people that did this for mom and pop shops. And they wanted to make sure that they were protecting people. So we ran this as a kind of simulated breach scenario. And for people who don't know what that is, you're running under the assumption that, hey, they got in our network. What could they do? Could our MSP see them? Are they going to block you? Can we take data out? Can we get on computers? Can we make changes? And really, a lot of companies test like this for a reason. I mean, if you think about it, I work for a very large organization. We have a great budget. We have really great staff, and they are highly motivated. But we're motivated a little differently than, let's say, if a nation state targets us, right? Like, my motivation, I want to keep my job. I want to do well. I want to protect my customers. The guy on the other end, his motivation is, hey, if I screw up, I might die. Or I might die and my family might go to prison for generations, right? So he has a little bit more of an incentive to try harder. I'm going to come home. I'm going to relax. I'm going to spend time with my wife. I'm going to play with my dogs. He's going to go home and he's going to train. And there's 100 guys like him. And if they're coming after you, they're going to get in your network. That doesn't mean you have to make it easy. You can practice, what happens if that scenario, God forbid, happens. Can we shut them down, or LFI vulnerability? So basically, with a LFI vulnerability, if you think like of a web server, when you go to a web page, you're saying, hey, I want to see this web page. You send a request out. That server goes somewhere inside its data bank or on its hard drive, grabs that file and serves it up. LFI is, can I access other files? What if I don't want that website like joe.index? What if I want to see something on the file system? And you may see these like directory traversal attacks where you take a website, you type out, cut out the index dot, whatever, HTML, and you just put like dot dot slash dot dot slash. What you're asking the server is, can you look elsewhere? Can you see somewhere else on your hard drive and give that file up to me? So he found this vulnerability and ended up figuring out a way to trick the computer into downloading a web shell. So when we go to the web shell, we go to that website, it gives us the ability to interact with the server. So great, now we have a web shell. Well, one of the stipulations of the test, the customer wanted to know, hey, if you guys get on there, can you write? Can you make a file that's unique, something that we know you got there? Now that we're on, we can do this. Let's do something unique. We wanted something that would stand out. And at this time, Archer was one of my favorite shows. We were watching it, and they have this great episode. I think it's in season 2 somewhere, where this worm virus infects ISIS, the agency he's working at. And as it propagates to the different computers, this little, pirate comes by doing this little dance and song. And we thought that was hysterical. I started looking online. I found out that FX was doing this kind of CTF-like promo where it was a puzzle and you could download these files and go through this whole game and win something. Didn't care about that. Reading a Reddit forum, I found out, hey, the GIF for that little pirate and the MP3 was there. That's what I want. So we downloaded that, got a copy. We had shell. We're like, hey, let's do this. Send it over to my partner. He loads it on the web server, got on there. We're like, okay, how do we, use this? And so he goes into their web development and modifies a web page that he finds. And he puts it in a little section in the corner where it was just blank white section. We load it up, test it out, and it worked. It was hysterical. We're on their dev's PC. We're looking at this website, this little pirate's going across the screen in the banner. We're having a good kick out of it. What we didn't know is that this worked too well, way too well. So this development PC is used to design web pages for the local company. And one of the ways that this company supplemented its income was by selling ad space. So every website they design, every website they put out there would have these little banners for advertisements that they sold. The other thing we didn't know is this development server replicated to production every night at midnight. So, like the devs would go in, they'd build the website, make it, work. And then this particular server was like the final part in the SDLC pipeline where it got pushed to production that night. And when I say it got pushed to production, every customer website they made for about 72 hours had this. Yeah. So we didn't know it did that. In fact, the only way we found out was another team of ours who was doing an external test happened to see it on the website, and they contacted us and they're like, hey, jackasses, did you push to production? So, same scenario. Anytime something like this goes wrong, you got to stop what you're doing. We called our management team and we reached out to the devs and helped them to switch it and then created a summary for the customer. Now, luckily, because this was kind of a small business to small business, we all got a kick out of it. It was a pretty funny story. But, I started to think, like, what if this had not been something so funny? What if this had been something, I don't know, like a browser exploitation beef hook, We could have pushed that into a real production scenario or setting. They could have had hundreds of customers that are just going to their websites, getting hooked and dialing back to us. Like, this was potentially a big issue. Now, one of the key takeaways, one of the big things I learned from this test is be careful with code. It sounds simple, right? But especially if you don't know what it does, you don't know what it's touching, you don't know what its dependencies are, you don't know what it might be a dependency for. So just go with caution. The other thing I learned from this test is document everything you do. The more detail you use, the better. Now, my partner had a great note-taking system. He had everything, every step of the way, everything we were doing, the server, the page that was modified, what we changed. So when we got on that phone call with the dev, it was a 5-minute fix. He said, we were on this server, we modified this page, it was line 13. And oh, by the way, here's a copy of the page before we made a change. So, when you're out there and you're doing this, make sure you have a good note-taking app. It doesn't matter if it's OneNote or Evernote. I use Cherry Tree a lot for just personal notes and different things. And practice like the real world. When I go to try Hack Me or Hack the Box, and I'm going through those, the CTF type things, I'm actually sitting there with a Cherry Tree document, and I'm doing almost like a tree system. It's like, hey, there's the IP of the system. Here's the data I found on it. Here's any interesting services I find. I separate everything and get as detailed as possible. The other advantage, not just covering your ass, when it comes time to do a report, you don't have to think or try to rely on your memory, and you'll have some great screenshots. Hopefully you can just put right into the report and give the customer a much better product. Because at the end of the day, like I said, our job is to make them more secure, to make things better. If I have a screenshot and a code snippet, like, hey, here's how we found the vulnerability. When you patch it, run this piece of code again, makes it easier for them. If something goes wrong, I can say, hey, here's the command I entered at this timestamp. Is that when things went wrong? No, probably wasn't me. So great lesson, carry it with me to this day. Now, this story I included in here because this was when I was kind of out of my own, just one of the first really great experiences. At the time, we didn't really have like the community that we had. So it was one of those gigs that was really hard to get. And I love this one. And we were working with a customer that they were basically, let's say, a medical research company, right? And they just built a new facility, brand new, like plastic wrap still on half the computers in there, everything getting set up. This building was like fully staffed with a in-house IT and security operations center, but it was a sealed environment. They had security on point. They were doing really great work. Because it was sealed and because of the type of work they're doing, they wanted to do this as a full remote test. And we had a very narrow window to work through before they started moving in some materials that were a little bit more hazardous. And they want to make sure things were done before those bad things got in there, right? This test still to this day just makes me smile because it was such a great experience. Because of the narrow scope, we had a big team. And this really made me kind of appreciate the concept of like the APTs, because like I was still newer, a little inexperienced. So I was doing most of the recon stuff. We had guys that were just web app guys. We had guys that knew physical security really well. And they were partnering with people locally at the SOC to kind of, work as a proxy while they go through these different things. We had guys that would load devices up, pull the firmware down, and then reverse engineer it and write like malware and do it in an hour. Like these guys were exposed me to things I had not been exposed to before. Like I knew about data forensics. I had never seen it used offensively before. So it's like, oh, cool. These are the guys I want to be when I grow up. I'm just happy to be here. Let's not break anything, right? And not only that, the customer pretty much gave us carte blanche, right? Fire at will, whatever works, get it done. We want to get it done before the bad stuff gets in the building. Let's go, all out. So we're going through scanning everything, just great feeling, great teamwork, good communication. We're working with the local guys, it just feels like one big team. And this network was amazing. Like everything was almost patched up to date. This was the first time I've ever seen a nearly complete hardware and software inventory, which if you do anything in IT long enough, you know that that's like a unicorn, right? Like nobody knows all of the systems. Like these guys had everything down. The SOC guys were on point. They were shutting us down. They were picking up things on the send. They're calling us, hey, we saw you doing this. Like really great. It was struggling, for a while. And then we started to run through, different things, just try to push through. Really great experience. Things were going really good. Then we get a call from the SOC, right? They're like, hey, there's a door to a server room over here. It's not opening. Did you guys do anything? So, we asked the guys who are testing the physical security, see what's going on, anything going on. Yeah, couldn't find it. Like, okay, that's weird. A little more time goes on. We get another call. Hey guys, our stairwell door won't open. Did you guys find out what's happening? Because now we have kind of a rolling outage type scenario. So we look through. At this point, we're a little worried. We stop our testing, don't find anything. A little more time goes by, and then we get the really fun call. Hey guys, so our door won't open. Help. So for some reason, the entire site was on lockdown now. The entire security operations team, except for one person, was locked in the SOC. That one guy was outside in the hall, so he could at least get to like vending machines in the bathroom, but nowhere else. And these doors aren't budging. Front door would open, you get in the lobby, but you could not get back to any of the offices or any of the secure areas. So everybody stops what they're doing, get on a big conference call, start trying to figure out what's happening and see what we can do to get them out of the room that they're stuck in. After about 40 minutes on the call, we just start reaching out to the other teams, let the customer know what's happening. At this point, we're just on the phone, we're reviewing all the sim logs, we're looking at our tool output, we're trying to figure out why won't these doors open. We can't even get the request to exit, like the buttons you push or the little motion sensor that sees you, hey, I'm a guy, I need to get out. Those are clicking, but they're not opening the door. Finally, this guy who is supervising our team, senior pen tester, comes out. He goes full old school on the issue, right? Gets on the network, starts running a PCAP, sees what the traffic's doing, starts spotting something, starts going through all the files with Python. I'm like, oh, taking notes. This is what I want to do. Learn Python, learn to read PCAPs, going through. And he sees that, hey, these HID readers are hitting, but they're trying to reach out to this service. And the service doesn't seem to be anywhere. Like, hey, we know what server it's on. So he starts working with the guys. They get the service restarted. We're trying to get them out of the building. They end up figuring out, the service is restarted, but what was the root cause, right? Well, if you're detecting a trend with some of these stories, there's your root cause. This Russian-looking guy right here, right? Well, yes, but kind of not. So what ended up happening was there was a middleware app that was being used to communicate for the physical security. And this middleware app basically pulled all the users out of Active Directory and then assigned, these are your badge numbers. So when you go up with a badge, it's like, okay, yeah, badge 1, 2, 3, that's Tim. Cool, Tim's authorized, let him through. Well, this service was running on a really strange port, not like a non-standard port above the 1024 normal ones. And the automated vulnerability scanner that my team was running misidentified this service. It just happened to be my unit that was the one that hit this particular service that caused the outage. So when I say misidentified, basically the vulnerability scanner reached out, it saw this, hey, you're running on port 17 something, this weird, and I'm going to download, the banner. Let's take a look, see what you are. Oh, you look like a web server. I'm going to send you some test traffic to see how you respond, just to make sure that I was right. So it sends out this test packet to try to test it, see if it's a web server. The middleware gets the test packet. It goes, I don't know how to read this, craps the bed and just shuts down. And you may see this with delicate services when you start doing this job. You will hit something that just shuts down anytime it's scanned, or the customer will tell you, hey, don't scan this port. It breaks a bunch of crappy software that some college kid wrote that we rely on because it's critical. This lack of error handling made the service crash. Sometimes it'll crash and you'll restart. You'll see all kinds of weird things. Now, the reason why this matters is in this situation, it lost connection and it went into what's called a fail secure state. So it locked down. Now, this makes sense if you think about the facility, this is a medical research facility. Yeah, some blocks you want to lock down. So like, hey, the monkey with the zombie virus, if the power goes out, yeah, we want those doors to stay shut, right? But where the people are, you want it to fail safe. So when the power goes out or there's an issue, people can open the door and get out. And this is a very, very important thing to understand with physical security. The safety of people is always the top priority, no matter what. I'm going to say it again. The physical safety of people is always your top priority with physical security. This is why we have laws that dictate and, codes and standards. Like there's certain ways doors have to open because a long time ago, a door was set to open out at a factory and it got blocked and a bunch of people got trapped in that door because of that door and burned to death. That's why certain doors open in and certain doors open out. There's codes and standards for this safety. So the lessons learned here, post incident, the client changed the hardware so this wouldn't happen again. And then they added some manual handles, make sure that if that deadbolt for some reason locks up or magnetizes or does something stupid, you can still get out. The other advantage, now they know we have this sensitive service running. So until we replace it, if we're going to do future tests or we get our own vulnerability scanning software, then we can not scan that port and maybe have an issue. And the way I see it, this could have been a catastrophic loss of life. What if they hadn't tested this and the power went out because of a fire or people got stuck there? Or worse, what if everything was reversed? What if the place where all the people are locks and all the zombie monkey cages open? So now you're stuck in a building with zombie monkeys. It's like this is something that is really great to find before there's an issue. This is also why when I'm on a test or doing anything, or even at work before I do stuff, I ask, is there anything out there that is delicate, that doesn't like to be touched? I need to know, please, are there any legacy pieces of hardware hiding out there that might have something on there, like, I don't know, a copy of all of your payroll that you don't want me to accidentally erase? These are the things you have to consider, and you will run into these. They're out there everywhere, and it's so stupid, but they are there. So this particular test right now is basically just general pen test. This is another one that kind of really, one that sticks with me. And this was a vanilla test. I've done 100 like this before. The customer provided the scope. They had good documentation. We're doing the test remotely with an on-site IT guy. Things were going really good. Got in, to the network with the IT guy's help, started scanning around. I got access to a low-level account. It had a weak password on there, 6 characters. And you will run into that, sadly. And using these credentials I found, I ran an authenticated vulnerability scan because if you ever get a chance, an authenticated vulnerability scan can give you a lot more information. When you scan a box that you don't have an account on, you're just looking at what's on the outside, what services are running, what can you see there. But when you can log into the box, now your vulnerability scanner can start looking at other things. What software is on there, what programs, what version are they? Gives you a lot more information to work with. So using this authenticated scan and this account, I was able to find a critical vulnerability that was on, or being flagged on one of the domain controllers. So, this particular vulnerability was one at the time, it was one of those kind of flavor of the week ones, like Shell Shock or Heartbleed. It had its own little happy logo and like a CVE number that was in the news everywhere. I found some test code online that would allow me to validate the findings because, with a vulnerability scanner, sometimes they're wrong. You don't want to freak out the client. You want to make sure, validate what you find there. And this code will let me do that without having to put like an interpreter session or anything crazy that might break or do anything weird. So I talked to the customer, talked with the IT staff. We designated a single domain controller for the test, and we were going to test after hours. And this was done specifically so, hey, if I break your DC, you guys got some spares. It's not the only one. You're going to be able to open tomorrow. And we did it after hours because then you don't get 100 and some odd calls when people can't log in because you just locked out accounts. So, we set the time, go have dinner, take a nap, make some coffee, call the local technician, get connected to the network. We're ready to go. At this point, I triple check my code just based on my history of poor coding, crappy spelling, and my dyslexicness. So, hey, cool. Everything's ready to go. We run the test, and yeah, nothing bad happens. Really, nothing happens. And I'm sitting there, I realize, oh, wait, I'm not connected to my computer anymore. There's way too much nothing happening. So I'm like, that's weird. And I pick up my cell phone. I call the point of contact on his desk line, and it's not ringing. And it's not like, oh, busy signal. It's just, yeah, this call cannot be completed. So I call him on his cell phone. He lets me know that everything is down. Not just the DC, the one target I picked, all of the DCs are down, and all the web servers are down, and their voice phone system is down, and the VPN concentrator we were using to get to my box is down. So with one click, I turned off a company, and this was like multi-state company. So yeah, where's that IT merit badge, huh? So this situation, like, same procedure, or I'm sorry, this situation, you can freak out, or you can, calm down and pretend like you know what you're doing. So same procedure, stop the test. Like, we had a choice, right? You contact the right people. We got the customer on the phone. Luckily, we're doing this at night. We did this intentionally. We got some time to work, and you get back to the basics. So with this is really where I went kind of just back in time to my help desk days, to my sysadmin days. And this is something I do regularly, where when there's a problem like this, go back to the OSI model, start with the basics. It sounds stupid. And really with this, it's one of those things I couldn't articulate until I heard it on another talk. And certainly. Go for it, man. You have my permission. Go for it. Give me a copy, though. Free copy. I'm not paying. No, not anytime. All right. So actually, if you kill that sound, because I'll get some feedback. Cool. All right. So company's offline. Click the button. Everything's gone. Now, I heard, this is something I've learned instinctually doing troubleshooting over the years. But it was really articulated best by John Strand from Black Hills Information Security in another talk. The 3 Ps, all right? Stick to the basics. Ping, port, parse. First and foremost, ping. Can you reach it? Is the resource up? Great. Now we know the network's there. And if you're reaching your web server, now you look at the port. If it's, supposed to be having a web page, can you go to port 80? Can you go to port 443? Look what's there. Is it giving you an error message? Are you getting a 404 or something? That's the parsing. Look at your logs. What are your tools telling you? Work the problem. So we started going through, and we ended up just turning it off and turning it back on again for everything. We had to hard reboot his system, my system. We got everything back up. Everything's working. So now we're in post, screw up mode. What caused this? We're looking at the local server logs. We're looking at the timestamps for my tools. My tool fired, the test completed, but then all of a sudden the server spiked, and we found the issue. So what happened here was the customer had recently done a DR plan. They had these multiple DCs because of a previous issue they had. They made a DR plan. They built 4 domain controllers. They made them all virtual machines, and then they stuck them on the same physical host. So let me repeat that. 4 DCs, all your redundancy with your core systems on one server, single piece of hardware. So for whatever reason, VMware just didn't like my code and it tanked everything. So what do we learn from this? Well, first, virtualization is great if you do it correctly. After this, the customer was able to migrate and vMotion the servers and spread out their infrastructure a little better so that, if some drunk guy drove through the ATM area where their server was, it didn't take their entire company out of existence like my click just did. So when, DR isn't DR until you test it. Just like with backups, if I back up a bunch of stuff to an SD card, that's not a backup until I verify it. That is a potential failure. There's also why I love after hours testing if you're going to do things risky. That way, you have some time to work through it. You may be up against a ticking clock depending on how late in the night you blow everything up, but it's really good. And this also taught me the power of a good, clear process. Because when these things happen, when things explode, you panic. You can't help it. You get adrenaline going. You're not thinking straight. You need a checklist and a process to go through. Stick to the basics, follow the checklist. It'll help calm you down and center you. Even if you look at like really super professional organizations like NASA, they have a process. If something hits the space station or the space shuttle, they have a checklist that you go down. Step 1, do we still have air? Or is it leaking? No, cool. All right, let's start going through the list till we get back to good. So see, kids, learning can be fun, although sometimes a little strange. Now, I share these stories with you because I want you to understand that, things will happen. When you're in the situation, you can't really see the other side, but you'll get through it. I got through it. Eventually in IT, if you work in it long enough, it doesn't matter if it's information security, it doesn't matter if it's standard, just, IT support, infrastructure support, anything. You are going to break something, it's going to cause a big problem. And those are the tests you remember. Those are where you grow. Like the tests that were the same old, go in, do the thing, do the report. I don't remember those. I remember the tests where weird things happened. And it doesn't have to be catastrophic like these. There are a lot of tests where just weird little things happen that stick with me. The world is chaos. And sometimes you got to laugh. You got to sit back and then think about like, yeah, that's a thing that happened. So, those things like the point of sale attack. One time I was on a test and we got into the UI of a cash register. And we were, hey, look, you can click this button and you can open up the cash register. That's really cool. What we didn't know is that when we clicked that button, the cash register opened and some stuff fell out. And this poor old lady shut the cash register and bent down to pick up the stuff. And then she got a cash register to the face and it startled her and she fell back into a filing cabinet. And this is one that still to this day, I feel so bad about because, she was okay. And, we laughed about it, but, Stuxnet's one thing. I punched some old lady through the internet. Yay. Or EPO no. Like you're in the middle of a test, things are going good. And then the managed services provider for your customer screws up inside McAfee EPO. And if you've ever used EPO or their enterprise policy orchestrator, it is a very powerful and pain in the ass tool to work with. So something happened, somebody clicked something wrong, and it basically went out to all of the endpoints with its little McAfee back channel communication. And it said, hey guys, I need you to download endpoint encryption right now. I need you to fully encrypt every hard drive and any thumb drive attached to your computer. And then I need you to restart and wait for a password that I haven't set yet. So the entire company, we couldn't get to anything. We had to postpone the test, come back later. Like, yeah, that wasn't my screw up. I still remember it because that's a memorable test. I think this may be the first time where it was a managed service provider performing a ransomware attack on their customer. So there's also like the time I made it rain. where hopefully you guys won't experience this, but back in the day, if you ran Tenable Nessus, printers sometimes didn't know what to do, and they started spitting out just gibberish and all kinds of weird crap, which is funny until it is a multi-state bank, and it is like every check printer at every counter at every bank that's printing this out. So hundreds of checks and something called Micker toner, which has little flecks of something magnetic in it. According to the bill we got, is very expensive. Or like the HP phone home, where like printers, I love printers, Printploit, those tools are great. In this scenario, didn't even need that. Just big multi-function printer, completely unlocked. We got into the web UI and I said, hey printer, I need you to do me a favor. Anytime anybody scans anything on this printer, can you send a blind carbon copy to an email address I set up? Because that would be super helpful, thanks. And it worked. And even after the test was over, for weeks, everything that this insurance company scanned went to our email tool. We had to actually call the customer and ask them, can you please stop sending us your PII? That would be so helpful. We would love you so much. Or, hey, you know, when you're on a test and you get into the CCTV video and you realize my customer's being robbed, and then you find out it is very hard to call 911 in a different state. In fact, the 911 operator tells you to find the local number and contact the sheriff's department. But, you know, how do you think that call went? Hey, I'm the hacker that the bank hired to break into their network, and I'm looking at this cameras and they're being robbed. Can you send help? Like, they thought we were a prank call. It was very, very difficult. Luckily, no one was hurt in this scenario. But, you know, I did learn that you can't just call 911 and be like, can you transfer me to, you know, the Cincinnati or the Chicago office? Like, it doesn't work that way. Unless you're on a cell phone there locally, then it will hit the towers and go where it needs to go. But, you know, from across the internet, it ain't working. And finally, this one I left in here because this sticks with me as the test where a customer has fought me so hard on a finding that it just irritated me. Now this, I've had customers ask me to change the report completely. I've had employers ask me to change the report to a point where I would have considered it fraud and I refused to. But this customer, I don't even understand the logic. So, you know, he has a small IT team. They have a lot of people they have to support, and they install VNC. And it's, you know, the VNC itself isn't necessarily bad. And there wasn't like a big exploit or a vulnerable version of VNC. In fact, this guy had a really powerful, you know, 16 character password at the time on the VNC service. And for those that don't know, VNC, you can basically kind of connect and take control, almost like a remote desktop. The problem is that password was only if you connect to take control. If you want to just connect and look at what people are doing on the screen, there was no password set. So anybody with a BNC on, you know, a BNC viewer application, which you can download and install even on a cell phone, could connect to any computer and just watch what's being typed. So we report this as a critical finding, and he's arguing it's not critical because you didn't take control of the PC. You didn't execute code. I'm like, look, man, we're taking screenshots of people entering, you know, medical data and PII. There's everything I need right there. If I just script it to take screenshots, now I have an entire identity theft pack. Like, this is critical. And luckily his boss agreed with us. And even then the fix wasn't that hard. Just either, you know, go in and change the password, or, you know, now you have justification to get some money to get a real tool. So, you know, these are the things that stick with you, and they help forge how you adapt, how you change your way of doing tests, and, you know, really what you become. So we talked about my past, but where do I see the future of fail? So like people starting out right now, getting into pen testing, what type of things are you going to screw up and have to look for? So with this, you know, of course we're seeing the future now. It's happening. We have IoT, the Internet of Everything, because, you know, for some reason, my Bluetooth or my toothbrush needs Bluetooth to tell me if I'm brushing correctly. Like smart everything is the stupidest idea I've seen in the last decade. We have these devices that are out and like trying to patch their firmware. If the customer or the people that make it ever make a firmware patch is very difficult. Some of them, it's embedded in a device where you have to break it to even get to the thing. You're not updating anything. So you're going to have all these IoT devices sitting on networks with vulnerabilities yet to be discovered that can't be patched. We're going to start seeing the old things become new again. And just like those delicate services, what happens if you send code to this critical IoT device that they don't make anymore that you can't patch and it dies? You're basically rolling the dice now, right? The other area we're seeing, even with IoT and all these new devices, is going to be scope. Like you thought it was a pain in the ass to try to scan an external /16 address. Wait until literally everything is on the network and has an IP. Like, what if you're testing a customer and they have like, a smart washing machine somewhere in the building, or a smart snack machine? Is that in scope? Can we start attacking smart thermostats and light controls? And it's going to vary depending on the customer. Or BYOD. Can I just bring my own malware into the office? If somebody brings a device that they bought and you're testing the customer, what happens if you exploit that personally owned device? Is that in scope? How's that going to play out? And you have little things like containers and Docker. Hey, I'm going to download this service from the internet and somebody else made it and hopefully it's secure. Some things you can't scan, and security is still growing. These are areas where the solutions are happening now and they're still very new. You even look at cloud, like the cloud configuration or the devil in the details. A lot of companies are jumping to cloud and they're not properly training people. And we're seeing this even with our own government. We've had Amazon S3 buckets open on the internet, and it had a bunch of data in there for counterterrorism operation. It's like if our government's not doing it, mom and pop who just got an AWS account, they're not going to do it. And then if you factor in the IoT and all these different devices and things that are tracking people, now we're getting larger data sets, which means that the breaches are going to get bigger. And you see that almost every week in the news. Record-setting breach. India just got hit, and like terabytes of data are getting lost. Or you look at apps like that are tapped into the political spectrum, like Parler, or those type of things that just terabytes and terabytes of data getting out. Pretty soon we're going to get into exabytes and petabytes of information. It's ridiculous. And finally, automation. And this is especially kind of a double-edged sword for security, because automation is extremely powerful. But if you're trying to save some money by like doing automated data entry, where you have a robotic process that's just taking information from a form and entering it, so you don't have to buy a new piece of software or hire a bunch of people, to do data entry. Basically, you have to be very careful, because what if it's crappy code or a crappy process? If you have a crappy process that generates a bunch of extra work and then you automate it, now you're just going to create an avalanche of shit that you're going to bury people in trying to sift through. And from the information security side, now we're starting to see automated pen testing tools. And we've seen these in the past. Now they're starting to evolve. Things like Core Impact, Cobalt Strike, even Metasploit Framework. Like, they have automated elements in them, and you can start to rely on those too much. But what if it breaks? What if the payload doesn't work? Throwing Core Impact on a network, right-clicking, saying scan targets, going to get a cup of coffee, coming back, and oh, this one looks like it's vulnerable. Right click, exploit. Or like using Armitage on Kali. It's like, yeah, I can right click and exploit, and the lightning covers around that thing, and that feels very good, and it can help when you're dealing with a large area or a huge network. But you really start to lose that skill if it breaks, or if you don't understand what the tool's doing. Like, I like Burp Suite. That's an amazing tool. But I needed to understand the basics so that I can change Burp Suite. I might find something that you don't find because I know how to calibrate the tool. So I'm not using the default web header when I'm doing scans. Maybe the customer has a web application firewall that's looking for the default burp suite or default scanning like Nmap, the way Nmap does its default scanning. If you know how it works, you might be able to go in and change that so you can get through and get more information, and it'll put you ahead. Automated testing can be good, but it might miss a lot too. Like that situation with that service where the vulnerability scanner misidentified it. What if automation does that and just either thinks it's not vulnerable when it is and bypasses it, or takes it down? With automation, you could see tuning it becoming a full-time job. So that's my talk. Just wanted to put that out there. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate everything you guys are doing. Love the community. I really wish we had something like this when I was starting out. So I wanted to give back. I especially appreciate any feedback, any ways I can improve this, anything you want to talk about in the future. And of course, I'll take any questions that they have, John.
Okay, so that was probably one of the funniest talks I've heard in a very long time.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I'd be as bold to say as everybody who talked before you all should be ashamed of yourselves, because that just wasn't as funny. And you know what? I think you all could learn a thing or two from the Slavic race on how to be funny, from we Slavic people, because quite frankly, we are known for our fine humor and culture. So taking all questions at this point, we have a good majority from RJ because, well,
RJ.
It's a day ending in Y.
Yeah.
Also, so for those of you who couldn't hear at home, just like real Jeremy Rasmussen, because we have real Jeremy Rasmussen and fake Jeremy Rasmussen. Real Jeremy Rasmussen, when he gave a talk I think it was last year, 2019. I think it was 2019. Sad and Compromised.
Oh,
that was 2019. Yeah. So back in the interesting days, he gave a talk on crypto, and he said the words, "And now you're sad and compromised." And me and Chris laughed until we peed. Well, I peed.
Yeah.
I peed at least. And then Chris ended up turning it into a shirt, and so we asked our beloved vodka nut here, can we take the phrase? What was it he said? It was so funny I forgot, but yeah, he said.
Where I clicked and turned off a company.
Yeah, I clicked and turned off a company, and he said that with a literal happy face emoji on his face, and so we wanted to do that on a shirt. Either that or else Rab came up with the idea of having a shirt that says, very important button, do not push, keeps company on, push deactivate.
That's why I wore this shirt. Given the talk and given the day, I wore the I tried it at home shirt with the guy on fire. I felt it was appropriate.
Just out of curiosity, so there was a security event with the water plant in Oldsmar a couple months ago. Was that you?
No, but I will say from having done other tests, not on the Pinella side, when it comes to SCADA and those type of security, it's very delicate and hard to test, and we have a lot of work to do. So yeah, talk to your congressman. We need some infrastructure.
Yeah, the security of SCADA is the equivalent of using a Cheeto instead of a deadbolt on your door.
Let me put it this way: there's a power company that we tested that was using dial-up modems to go to substations.
Hell yeah!
Firewall. So all you needed to know was the number and have a 56K modem, and you could turn off the power.
I can maybe see why they would do that because, little known fact, you might actually know this, but this was news to me when I heard it. So when the power goes out, because we live in Florida and it's hurricane season, dial-up still works. That's the only reason I still have AOL.
I could see that, but you should probably still have some type of, I don't know, even some type of touch tone password before you get to the turn off the network neighborhood,
Yeah, so good idea, bad judgment, as they say in the Marine Corps. So RJ, which I'll answer this before Jake does, how good is the Hack 5 gear on real-world pen tests? It's not. Go, Jake.
So it can be, but it We'll also sometimes, let me just put it this way. Test before you go to the site. Do not update before you do anything. Like if it's working, don't touch it. Because
Okay.
I've had some issues, especially with pineapple.
Yeah, the new pineapple's garbage.
Yeah, I've had good luck with the Bash Bunny. The Bash Bunny is extraordinarily awesome because even if you have like USB drives locked, the way that the Bash Bunny registers, it registers as a network interface.
Yep.
So it bypasses like 80% of the endpoints. And
Yep.
like even working, I worked for a year and a half with McAfee directly, trying to get it to block it. Like, hey, I plugged it in. Can we block this? So it'll register as a network port, and you can do fun things with that, where you can mirror all traffic to the Bash Bunny
Yep.
locally before it goes out to the internet. So yeah, that's a good way to get a hold of like the cert used to stop network access control lockouts and stuff like that.
I've had good luck with the land turtle as well, and it's not just the fact that the turtle is one of my favorite animals because it's also one of my best friends. But I've
I
had
want
good
to try
luck.
the owl one where you hook it to the monitor and it just takes screenshots and sends it out to you.
That's just between that and the screen crab. It's so unbelievably circumstantial. Where it's like, okay, I will capture what they're putting on HDMI because I will sneak into the building. Like, actually, sidebar story because we're talking about pen test stories. I'm not going to say what company this is or who because there's a couple people in the guild that still work at this company, much to my great chagrin. And I think Tremere is watching at home. We were at a local higher educational club for cybersecurity, and they had this fellow talking there, giving a brief on physical pen testing. And the video that he showed was like dudes kicking down doors and really. Is
Oh, wow.
Yeah, does that look cool?
It takes a second.
Yeah, it takes a second to catch up. Okay, well, you guys will see it home. So he's given like his talk on physical pen testing, and it's like dudes kicking down doors and throwing flashbangs in, which I'm like, what the hell kind of physical pen test is this? Like, knock knock sock, frag out, oh yeah, fuck you, I got you, yeah, like, and then so me and I'll out Tremere. So it was me and Tremere sitting next to each other, and we're listening to this dude like, what in God's green earth is he talking about? And so then at that point he's like, we tune out and we're doing Marine Corps shit talk, and then like we tune back in and then we hear, yeah, so that's why you keep your grappling hook on the side of your backpack. And me and Tremere look at each other and like, your fucking grappling hook? What? And so
Yeah, you know what my physical pen test consisted of? A clipboard and a manila folder.
yeah, no, this dude's like, grappling hook, baby. He's got like the suction cup shoes on and stuff, like he's freaking Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. So he's talking about the virtues of keeping a grappling hook on the left side of your backpack, which at this point, me and Tremere are like, okay. So I do a sidebar for the class because I've known these kids for some time, and I'm like, hey, so make sure that if you're gonna do that, you keep your scope letter in your somewhere in your pocket, because the last thing you need is like some cop rolls up on you and is like, hey, look at that, and then just just sends you to hell. So I mean, not that the letter.
Questions.
Yeah, right. Don't ask questions. Blah blah blah. Like it's Spaceballs or something. So I'm like, hey, so make sure you keep your scope letter in your pocket, because you never know what you're gonna run into. And then the guy's like, no, bro, you can't have a scope letter. You can't tell the cops that you're doing this. That's how you get burned.
Yeah, I would be careful with that. I mean, we even saw that story recently. They had a scope letter, but then you got
Cops didn't give a shit. Screw you and your scope letter, but yeah, just
I have some physical pen test stories that I've done very few, but yeah, they were interesting. That could be another fun talk.
Yeah, so just you telling stories about pen tests that have gone wrong, and that just made me kind of flash back to that story of some bad advice. And I get the feeling that especially them coal fire boys, they can certainly tell you about a pen test gone wrong. So
yeah, really.
RJ again asks, are you supposed to call 911 on every test or just on-site ones?
You call 911 when there's an emergency and when people have guns. Common sense is authorized. Now that also terrifies me because doesn't RJ work for the police?
Yeah, RJ works for the. Yeah, the sheriff's department.
Consult your employee manual.
Yeah, ask your supervisor. Okay, so while I search for, oh yeah, have you caused? Gosh damn it, RJ. Have you caused any fatalities from the pen test going wrong, or know of anyone who has? Jake, RJ wants to know, have you sent anyone to hell? Have you punched anyone's ticket on a pen test?
No, I have not. I am not at that level to get to that type of stuff. I will say that I did almost have an issue with my own doing a pen test. Well, it was more of a vulnerability assessment at a nuclear facility, which was an interesting experience because they give you this little card. We were just there to kind of pick up some equipment and do stuff, but basically they give you this card and it's like, hey, there's a little square in there, and if that square turns black, you're going to have a bad time. But the good news is you won't have that much time. It'll be very bad.
Supposed to French fry, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, I still have the card. That was an interesting experience. I hadn't thought about that, and that was like kind of down by. It was actually way south, kind of by the Speedway south of Miami, down there, Homestead area. So that was fun.
Another wonderful RJ question. Your company had to pay for causing the clients additional expenses like printer ink incident.
So
does it ever come out of your paycheck?
Sometimes it does. It depends on the contract, but that's usually determined by legal people yelling at each other. But that's why a lot of companies have insurance, because things will go wrong. So whether our insurance picked it up or their insurance, generally when you work for a company, if you're at a reputable company, you will have some type of insurance for your testing and maybe like a separate cyber insurance policy. But it's very important, that you still operate professionally. You try not to cause those things, but if it happens, then that's for the management side. I'm just breaking the stuff. That's my project manager, my team. They can deal with that stuff, and then I'll take the yelling.
You see, I'm always of the mindset of it. Typically you do the thing, then you get your ass chewed because you have the experience of doing the thing. But Laszlo asks, have you hacked anyone's pacemaker?
No, I haven't done anything with bio. Actually, in general, from my experience, anything to do with medical is a colossal pain. So usually, if you're doing that, you have to be very, very much attention to detail. Take into account like the HIPAA, those different things. I've thought about like maybe getting something off eBay to practice with. I would never test
pacemaker
on
only used once.
Person. Like I would go to the company to see if we could get a piece. I don't want to anything that's actively and engaged in the sustaining a human life. No, I don't want to play with that.
I can picture RJ because like every time there's a talk, RJ shows like he has something random and new shipped. Like he had a toy machine shipped here. We have an ATM from RJ. He had a probation, like an ankle bracelet, like you wear on, when you're on probation. Had that shipped here. I'm just picturing in my head like RJ sitting in his, RJ mobile. Yeah, in a hazard bag, like he's looking on eBay for a used pacemaker for you to hack. That's all I'm picturing right now. Speaking of, so I wanted to run this idea by you. Me and Peach were talking about maybe doing the first teledildonics CTF. I think that'd be a good idea.
I mean, the joking aside, when it comes down to it, it's basically just a computer. So why not?
It's a computer plus.
You can do.
You're putting the plus in Sec Plus. So Equinoxin, considering the stories you told tonight, how many successes happened between the F-ups? Real quick, Equinoxin, just commit. Say fuck-ups. You child.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good question. Like I said, a vast majority of the tests are just going to be kind of the vanilla cookie cutter, mundane. It's just like, it's like any other job. When you think about your job, you're not remembering the day you spent running through the spreadsheet. You're remembering the day the guy at the office freaked out and threw a chair, right? Of the days that you remember,
That's why you're always nice to that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the candy.
I love that joke. Thanks for the candy.
But no, I mean, it's just, it's really, it's like anything else in life. Like when you go through the monotony, those aren't the things that stay with you. It's the unique experiences. So yeah, these stories are fun. And there are some that, there's actually two other ones I was going to share, but even though, you know, I abstracted everything, the customer reached out and they're like, hey, we had second thoughts, and all of these I got permission because, you know, most all my jobs have NDAs. Some have different time frames in there, but you know, when I first told them I'm going to talk about that time I screwed up your company, like there were a lot of
You got to
questions.
do it with the biggest smile on your face.
It took me months. It took me months to, you know, just the back and forth. I'm showing them like, look, you know, it's just the story aspect. I'm not going into any details. There's not even like what version of whatever you're using. It's just, this is just
Here's
for the
how I
teacher.
hit your
Oh,
domain
that's
controller with that Ron Jeremy.
cool. Yeah.
So in a more serious direction, what do you use on Like I'm a big fan of you know, using screen to GIF or green shot or flame shot if I'm on Linux, as far as you know, gathering my evidence for pen tests.
Yeah, I really like Sparta, which I think is Legion now.
Okay.
It does some good stuff. But yeah, I try to play around with different things. Like I've gone through, you know, like throwing everything into Faraday or Dratus, which can be painful to, you know, just what I use now with my manual system and some Markdown and some stuff. But one of the things I do for every test, it is with I have a laptop dedicated just for testing, and when I do a test like an independent test or an assessment, what I'll do, I'll buy a hard drive and I'll put it in the laptop and I'll install all the tools and everything on that hard drive, and I'll do the test. And at the end of the test, I turn over the report, but I hand the customer the hard drive, which is encrypted,
Yeah.
and I give them the key. And this serves two purposes. One, if I'm ever compromised, you know, because I'm in InfoSec, we are targets too.
Yep.
If I'm compromised, they're not going to ever get my customer's data because I don't have it. The other advantage is, and this is something I've learned from experience, you don't get a phone call 3 months later to ask you about some obscure thing on a test you can't remember, because at this point in my life, I have a 72-hour memory buffer. If it's past that buffer, it has to be written down.
How did you get it up to 72? Because I'm at about a 16 right now.
I stopped pen testing full time, and
Yeah, that's fair.
I took a management job.
Well, I've met people who, you know,
Yeah.
I've met, especially through pen testing, who whenever they go on engagements, they'll, you know, they just have a file cabinet full of like just flash drives. I'm sorry? Hence the burp tool buddy. Yep, that's right. There's the plug. We got our eyes on you, Dr. Sonny.
And Sunny, I love Sunny. Like years ago, ISC Squared had a meeting. She came out, and that's how I learned web app testing, was from there, and that helped expand my career. Like I learned web app testing from her.
I remember when Turtle gave his talk on Lolbass, and me and Peach were sitting together, and he introduced himself as a noob, and I remember me and Peach looking at each other like, if Turtle's a noob, what the fuck are we? And that's just always stuck with me, as far as like, if Sonny's here, where the hell am I? But yeah, I've met people who just have like a, you know, a file cabinet full of flash drives, you know, like 64 bits, and you know, they're all have Kali Linux or Parrot if you're a moron, burned to them. And
I get that question a lot. Like, which do you prefer, Parrot, Kali? It really doesn't matter.
Red Arch,
sometimes
Red Arch,
yeah,
or Black Arch.
Yeah, Arch. Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Arch. I don't know if it's ready for prime time, but even like Black Ubuntu, like, you know, some of the stuff sometimes I'll just do a Debian build with you know, 5 or 6 tools I'm going to use. Like I don't need all the bloat, and since it's going to the customer anyway, you know, I have some custom distros I've spun. Even at work, we have kind of a pseudo pen test program that I built, where I made a custom distro just for that and training behind it, so that people can go out and do these things. But also, there's not enough on there where, like, you know, I'm letting someone loose with all of Kali. It's like, oh, I hit the wrong button, and now we're man in the middle with freaking responder, and I don't know how to turn it off.
I was working on that. Oh man, like before COVID, back when we were across the street, I was gonna take, like, you know, the tools I used in Kali most, and you know, maybe some other stuff too, especially a lot of the phishing engagement stuff that wasn't on Kali.
It's a lot easier with their meta packages.
Yeah. I love them, especially with Windows Subsystem for Linux. Love their meta packages, but I was going to put it all on Pop OS and call it Pop the Magic Dragon.
Yep. Yeah, I run Pop on most of my stuff. I love it.
Yep. Love, you know, love Pop.
You're watching on Pop right now.
Yep, I'm on pop right now actually, but yeah, I've seen dudes, they'll just put Kali on a flash drive, and then, at the end of that, they'll live boot from Kali, do all the pen test on that, and then just turn the flash drive with all the logs, everything over to the client. I was going to ask you, what do you use as far as your logging? Because you did mention, okay, so I ran this command at this time. Did it do anything? And honestly, that caught that's something I, as a pen tester, I don't do, and maybe I should start doing. What do you recommend as far as keeping track of your actions for logs? Do you do Red Elk or anything?
Not anything that advanced. A lot of the stuff is built into the tool. So like, if I'm running through a scan, tools like Burp, I'll take the whole file out, the whole project file. A lot of them do it natively. I just have it like anytime I can get verbose output, like with Nmap or things like that, I keep them all. So you have all the scans. Like I mentioned, Sparta or Legion, that goes through a whole bunch of different stuff. It's very noisy.
Yep.
So if you're flying under the radar, that's not the one you want to run, but it does a good job of correlating everything into like a little folder. So it's like, oh, there's the folder with all the screenshots it found from all the web servers, and it's sectioned by IP,
Yeah.
and it's good.
Is there a secret you have as far as cutting down on the verbosity of that without turning reporting into like a week-long affair?
So the way I do reports are a little different. Like I'll have technical reports that have all the, everything, and it's really deep and like, hundreds of pages if they want it. But generally I've found that most of the tests that I do, because they're like contractual, like 1099 stuff or just one-offs or stuff I do to stay sharp. The customers I'm working with aren't the most technical. So I present it like a narrative, like, hey, I got into your system using this. This is how I propagated through your network. I don't go through necessarily every, vulnerability with them. I'll give that to their IT or whoever's supporting. Like, here's all the other stuff I found.
Yeah.
But hey, here's the path I took. Start there and then worry about your other areas.
Just to give you ideas for, if you want to figure out what's next, because I know you got that Wi-Fi hacking part too, and and actually one or two people in the events channel also mentioned, maybe a class from a senior pen tester on, proper reporting, taking notes. I know there's junior pen testers that I've worked with from many different scopes where, I'll get their report next because I'm next up the chain, and it just looks like somebody wiped their what with it, and it's like, do you know what a dictionary is? And maybe being over or under verbose. Do you see yourself maybe teaching proper report writing, taking notes, methodology, anything like that?
I can teach what I've learned. As for proper writing, I always have someone sanity check my reports whenever I can, because when spell check cooperates with my horrible spelling. Sometimes it's the wrong word. So, it makes no sense from English. Anyone who watches me in the chat long enough, or like if I'm using voice to text, that's not always my friend. I don't know if it's the beard or what, but crazy stuff.
Yeah, you cut down on the beard, man. What happened?
I got really sick. So yeah, took about like 5 inches off, and just change it up every now and then.
Okay, I feel like a dick now.
I have a beard always, but the length varies.
So Turtle asks, based on your experience, what's the one thing you've learned that you wish all your clients knew up front going in? Before you answer that, the more you tie, and I know there's one person here that'll freaking amen that, the more you tie the pen tester's hands behind the back, the shittier of a product you're gonna get.
Yeah. So I think with the biggest thing I wish customers would understand, especially the people hiring us, is like when we're coming in, and I think some of this is on the onus of the tester. You want to create a cooperative atmosphere. I'm not there to be combative. I'm not there to show you guys are slacking. I'm there to show you, hey, this is where your vulnerabilities are. And that's very common where you work with a customer and it's like, hey, why are you being such a jerk? Like, you're paying me a lot of money to do this. Just let me help you. I'm not trying to grandstand. And that might be because there's people out there who, we all know that type, and they're in every career. There might be people, look how great I am. I took over your whole company. Like, what was that grandma?
That's literally the first thing I'd say is like, I would send them an autographed picture of me. Like,
everything is garbage. You should fire all your IT, and I will. You're like, no, don't.
You're absolute garbage. You should go to jail. You're absolutely terrible.
And honestly, when I do the reports and I give the debrief, I like to point out and make it a point to show areas where IT is doing well, because I'm not there to bash
Yeah.
IT. I'm there because you guys missed some stuff. So, hey, when I'm going through, it's like, yeah, we got this, but here's where they learned. Here's where they found me. You guys are doing great here. These are the areas you should work on or invest in. And when I say invest, like a lot of companies hear that and they're like, oh, we got to get the blinky box. Like sometimes you don't have to spend money. Sometimes you just need to refine a process, or you have a tool that should be doing something and you need to tune it. You know, like start with the simple things and the quick wins. Don't jump the gun.
I mean, I was saying out loud while you were talking. On a day I get root, whether it's web root or just actual machine root, I'm eating lobster that night, man. Like I'm going to town. But that's kind of the mentality I think a lot of pen testers can learn from, and a lot of these dudes who just start out, they're acting like Scrappy Doo, where I'll round them, I'll pound them, and the first thing they do that they get root is they immediately go on Twitter and start just blowing their wad. I don't think a lot of these people realize that they are here to help and not just break somebody's toys and then go get Taco Bell afterwards and tell them how great they are.
You got to be careful with that, because I mean the IT security community I'm starting to find it didn't exist a lot when I was starting off. So like Paul Security Weekly, things like that were godsends for me. And then finding like ISC Squared and finding things like the Guild, like had they had something like this years ago, oh my God, it would have saved so much time.
Oh, dude.
We were scraping for stuff. But building up that community, we talk to each other.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't seem like it, like East Coast, West Coast, they're not that far apart. If you're going to make a bad reputation for yourself, it's going to travel and it's going to be harder for you. And yeah, maybe you have the skills to back that up. But I heard a great talk. I don't remember where it was. They basically said there's two ways to build yourself. You either build yourself up or you tear down others. And I heard that.
¿Por qué no los dos?
I want to be the guy who builds myself up and helps others up along the way.
I'm that guy where if I can build myself up while tearing other people down, I think I've accomplished what I'm here to do. But that's just me. Yeah, right. Okay, so we are getting in our last bit of questions while we're waiting on the rest of the guild to get their final questions in. So what's next for you, both career-wise and as a guild member?
So right now, I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at. We're doing some pretty exciting things. Just started to adapt some new programs at my job. I did lose a very valuable teammate, so it doubled my workload. So I'll probably focus on getting recentered there first. Well, hopefully to get some money for backfill and everything. But as far as the guild, once things start to normalize, I've had a lot of people who missed the first talk, the wireless hacking course, the training I gave for free. I was going to do a second run and had some issues where we had to cancel and it sucked. But, then COVID happened and everything canceled and it sucked.
Surprise!
So when things normalize, either things are going to normalize or we'll maybe do some like weekend sessions, break it down into bite-sized things, jump on small groups online just to get people up to speed. And the reason there is I've already developed the second level Wi-Fi course. It has more hands-on labs. It builds off the first one. Like, hey, okay, cool. Now you know how to break into a network. What happens next? So I built a little mobile lab that people will be able to test on. And I built a little CTF game that we'll be able to play. I'm definitely going to reach out for some help at the guild just to, sanity check my work. RJ's already sent me like 4 misspelled things on my thing, so that's cool. Update my slides, get those. And really that's how you build it. You need that community because you're going to miss.
Everybody needs an RJ.
Yeah.
We all need an RJ. we have met our quota for an RJ.
Anybody that's worked with my code, like, yeah, my code works. It's not pretty. There might be people out there who are better that can take this. Like, there's no doubt Jonathan Zenger's going to look at my soldering and be like, I'm going to bring some people to help you.
Yeah. I remember, speaking of Wi-Fi hacking and soldering, Nestor put on that Ponagachi pub crawl where, for the first 4 hours, we all soldered we soldered Ponagachis together. And then we all just rolled around. Like, he actually set up APs at like the Bad Monkey at Cigar City. And, we'd pound drinks and then hack the Wi-Fi there, and it would almost be a pub crawl. And, I remember me, Andy Kraz, and Havoc hang together. If Havoc's out there watching, we miss you.
And really, like, with this talk, there's actually a whole section with, like, the Ponagachi. If you have the handshakes, I will show you different ways to crack things faster. Not just using AirCap, but how to, like, build, like, little rainbow tables, do that type of stuff. and those will be incorporated into the CTF component, because basically whoever gets there first, I actually have some prizes I came out of pocket for that I put to the side that, we'll be able to give away.
Temple will match whatever you got, man. We'll help out too. Did you see that dolphin? The dolphin hacker thing? What's it called?
Oh yeah, no, I
Flipper.
backed
Flipper.
that.
Yeah. Flipper.
I backed that and I ordered 2 because I'm going to break one of them screwing around.
I caught on to it late, so I'm waiting to see when it ships. But Fake Jeremy was talking about, apparently they took out all the vulgar names like Pooper, and he was trying to figure out how we could pay extra to get names like that. Like, I'd love one like Shithead from The Jerk, Steve Martin.
Nice.
So I'm gonna kind of throw you off balance here a little bit. If somebody from the guild, an apprentice or somebody just starting out, were to approach you and say, Uncle Vodkanot, how do I be you? What are 4 or 5 steps? What are 4 steps to be you?
Yeah.
To get on track to be you? What would those be?
First step, don't be like me. Be better than me. So.
Oh, come on.
No, really, like that's my goal. I want to make it easier for the next generation, and then they can pay it forward. So, really learn the basics. I think one of the biggest issues we have is the quote entry-level cybersecurity. With cybersecurity, there's so much you need to know beforehand.
Yep.
That it's really entry level there is like 3 years elsewhere, and
Yeah,
now we have these.
The industry really
camp.
screwed. Yeah, the industry really screwed the pooch on that one. And this, like, how you have all these dudes graduating, and I've said this, 5 million times since 2018. How do you secure somebody else's network if you've never built one?
Exactly, and so I learn those fundamentals. And when you learn something, take the time to learn past the curriculum. Try to push yourself a little bit. Do it at a home lab. Play around. It doesn't have to be expensive. Just start off with something simple. Like when I first started off pen testing, I didn't really have access to stuff. So I found a cool site called I think it's opensecuritytraining.org or .net. I'll find the link. And I've talked about it before, but
What does that
there's
sound
a
like a
bunch of
phishing
free
site?
stuff out there. It's basically like security classes, like beginner, intermediate. They have like reverse engineering, and some of it's dated, but it's a whole class packet, like made for instructors. Like you download this, it's open Creative Commons license. Like, oh, I want to teach how to do malware stuff. I download this, I look at it, it's got instructor slides, it's got exercises. So, that was one of the first resources I found. And then I found like SecurityTube, and from there ended up saving up enough money to do the OSCP, and it was a really good experience at the time. I ended up actually failing my OSCP the first time by 5 points.
Who doesn't? And anybody who says they passed their OSCP for the first time is either a liar or they took it back in like 2002, like Turtle did.
And I know a couple, but see here, I felt so stupid because afterwards, I was talking to some people who had passed. They're like, oh, did you submit the report? Because you can get 5 points from the report. And I'm like, oh, well, the deadline already passed. And by that point, I was working for a company where we were just churning out tests. We were so busy that's where I got into that ironic loop. Like, I can't take the test to prove I'm a pen tester because I'm too busy pen testing. But I do have a lot of other certs, and I will be going back for it eventually. There's just, it's like everything else. I'm a late bloomer in a lot of areas, but if you want to learn the basics, learn like networking, learn how to troubleshoot, learn how to like read logs, read PCAPs. It'll give you a little leg up. Learn how systems interact with each other. So don't just install things on Kali. Understand why it goes in a specific folder. Why would I put it in a binary folder as opposed to an op folder? When you find something you don't know or something new, like take the time and practice it. There's a lot of things out there like Try Hack Me, Hack the Box. There's great resources out there. When I first started off, I didn't have a budget, so I just went to VulnHub.
Yep.
Literally, like I had VirtualBox. I would download one box at a time, and I would practice it. And those have write-ups. So I got exposed to a lot of different tools because there might be 4 or 5 different ways to compromise these boxes. And shitty dual-core laptop, like barely running. I think at this time it was still Backtrack 5.
I do think that the hiring part of the industry does have some catching up to do and some unfucking to do, because we, the practitioners, are saying do CTFs, do Hack the Box, have a home lab, but at the same time, none of that's applicable on resumes, and it maybe is applicable when you get to the interview stage, but it's all that stuff that we tell people to do is at least on the HR level, just useless. And I've seen at least 3 people that I'm mentoring or at least helping out where they're doing all those things. They're beating their heads against the wall. I know for a fact they're competent, but because they don't have that bachelor's degree or that experience, nobody's even looking at them. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I got very lucky because I had some people who took a chance on me. It's ironic because I actually just finished up my bachelor's last year, so I went the opposite route. Like I was a pastry chef. I was building gaming boxes on the side. I went to this boot camp program called Fast Train. Doesn't even exist anymore because they got like sued for fraud. But it was like, yeah, I got my A+, my M+, my MCSE, my CCNA, and it was like 6 months. And I came out, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm gonna do my first IT job. And I'm like tech support at AOL, and it was just so refreshing, you know. So I ended up getting my foot in the door, and now I tried to help out like where possible, and it's good to network and make those connections because it's going to make a lot more of an impact if I approach one of my pen tester buddies and like, look, this kid has the thing, like he doesn't have the stuff on paper, but I've seen it. He can be taught. He's doing stuff on the side, and I've seen a lot of that. Like where I work, they invest in those type of people. Even I think like Ivan, who works in Eagle, who came out and gave a talk. Like he has a whole web page up. Yeah, he has a website up that just has like his CTF stuff and stuff he's doing. I'm like, that is so impressive. I wish I would have known to do anything like that. Back when I was doing this stuff. It's like just a little tag onto your resume. Like, look at the stuff I'm doing in the community. Look at how I'm helping.
Okay, so the little apprentice, he goes out, he does the CTF. They do their CTF. They do try hack me's. They do hack the boxes. So they're getting the experience. Okay, now what? What does Uncle Vakanat recommend for step 2?
So for that, like really talk with people in the industry to find out where you want to go. Because everybody wants to be a pen tester, but it's not their best fit. Like I've met people who started in pen testing and it's like, oh wow, I really like the forensics.
That's literally me. That was literally me. I got my start in pen testing, and after a while I got bored. And then I took a SOC analyst SANS class, and I was like, this is the most interesting shit on the face of this planet.
And the defensive side, they don't make it as because you always see the exploit and the red team side, but the defensive side, it's like, hey, you're basically dealing with the equivalent of a murder in cyberspace. It's like you got to find the clues. Like I like figuring out how things work, and so sometimes doing like incident response is really cool because like how did they even get in? Where did they go? Why did they pick that path? Like that's the stuff that I love putting together. And if you have a mind like that, that might be better for you. And what we really need in this field is we need people with better soft skills. People that can, like at my job,
I don't know if Tremere is watching at home, but you just you made him tight around the waist.
So some of what I do at my job is basically translating tech to common. So I take the difficult concepts, I make a cute little metaphor so I can explain it to management so we can get money and fix the problem. And we need people that can socialize and play the politics and we need politicians. We need lawyers.
Let's.
No, I'm serious. We need people that understand that, like, no, Google's not tracking my Apple phone. We need people who just understand it.
My name is Donald Trump, and I want to go be a pen tester. What do I do?
I'm serious. Like, cyber law is really behind, and the politics there. But we also need management that can do technical and still have those social interactions. Because there are some brilliant people that I work with and have worked with where, like even in the community, there's a really great guy, Rabbit. I love him. He is awesome. He is so much smarter than I will ever be. And he always says, how he has anxiety. And a lot of people who are very intelligent, they'll have these, issues where they can't talk with people. It's very hard to talk in front of public, and do talks like these. It's very difficult. Even now, I had anxiety before coming on here, and I'm talking to a wall. I feel like a crazy person. I literally have a smiley face.
Yeah, I'm staring at a camera. I feel like I'm in Space Odyssey 2001, like I'm trying to get Hal to let me in or something.
We need those advocates, people that can do the soft skills and who can be the customer, be the face of information security. And you see some people, like I see like Network Chuck and some of those people, they get a lot of shit dumped on, but they're trying to get out there. They're being a face. We need people like that who make this interesting, not just the red team, but the blue team.
I couldn't imagine. I think I've met Chuck once or twice at a B-side somewhere around. I can't remember where, but just somebody who shits on somebody like that, it's like, why? Why do that?
The way I see it is, I heard a great mantra: "While you sleep, the enemy trains."
That's a Marine mantra.
Yeah. Why am I worried about what this guy's doing? Good for him. There are so much stuff out there to do. Go do your thing. You do you. Like, I love people like the Cyber Mentor, people that are giving out, Black Hills Information Security. Love every guy there. Awesome. Every guy and gal. Like, great stuff. Free tools, free stuff for the community. Help build stuff. Like, that's what we need. We are at a war. We are behind. We are decades behind some of these other countries. We need to get people up and out.
Yeah, we need a propaganda machine, which is why we picked Chris up off the side of the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, honestly, shout out to Chris. Like, can you imagine having to come up with just all of this posters and shirts and all this stuff?
That's
all the
why
time?
we pay him in combos and Arizona iced tea.
Like cheers to you, man. That stuff's awesome.
I argue that the guild sucks, or I make the joke that the guild sucks and everybody's here for Chris.
Yeah, no, I can't tell you how many calls I've been on.
Yeah, right. Everybody's here for the next sticker.
Yeah, I love that poster. Bought it. I've been on so many calls where people are like, "Where did you get that?" I'm like, "Hey, I'll get you the information." Now he's got an awesome website up, so I'm driving people there. Like, you want a business card? You want something cool? Like, this guy will set you up.
Okay, well, with that, man, I think we're done tonight. Is there anything else, wisdom-wise or messaging-wise, you want to pass off to the guild, man?
No, go out there, fail, have some fun, hopefully break it, fix it, man. Preferably do it in your lab. Don't do it in production.
Yep. The home lab is where it's at. In fact, the home lab channel. If you're not in there, I'll plug it in the events channel. If you're not in there and you're looking to break in, you're wrong. It's that plain and simple. So, folks, you heard it from Vodkanaut. If you suck, you're really good. So, if you're failing, that means you're doing the right thing. So
just follow me. Fail upwards.
Yeah, fail upwards. Hey, Chris, people are asking for you to post your site and events, the ransomware site. So, okay, folks, with that, have a good night. We just spent the whole 2 hours. Jake, awesome talk, man. Hope to see you at some point this year and, get some man love going on in there, beard to beard action. Take it easy, man. Be safe down there.
My wife's gonna kill me. Love you guys.